Welcome to the E Show, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network. Founded in 2013, the EHL is your next step on the path to college. Over the past decade, the EHL has established itself as the college placement leader on the East Coast. And now, here's your host, the commissioner of the Eastern Hockey League, Neil Ravin.
Thanks, Jim. What's up? My name is Neil Ravin, and let's bring in the E crew now. Jeff Mills, Anthony DiPaolo. Guys, we've played 32 games already. Does it feel like that?
Not really, but it's weird because we were just talking too, and there's still in the EHL we still have 6 teams, I believe it is the final number that
yes.
Played. Got some openers happening later on today. But Premier, everybody except for the Rangers and Seahawks has played, so only 2 teams left to get on the ice over there.
I can't help but feel like every week we're just shocked that another week passes by. Like, hey,
Right.
Can you believe that the season started?
Everyone turns it on, they're like, oh, here we go again.
Do you know that every 24 hours a day passes by? Shocking.
This is a groundbreaking podcast, Anthony. Well,
none
you know what?
None of us
do
went
this.
to MIT. None of us have time continuum machines.
Yes. Why don't we start breaking down what happened in those 32 games then and around the E Show?
Let's take a look at what's going on around the E Show.
Around the E Show is presented by BioSteel, the sports drink of the EHL. Use the promo code EHLB1. That's EHLB1 for 25% off when you check out at biosteel.com.
So this year, or every year, the podcast primarily drops on Thursdays, as everyone knows, outside of showcase weeks. So next week, we're dropping it Wednesday, just so everyone can be prepared at home. But for the weeks that it's dropping on Thursday, we're going to record on Thursday, right? So, which I think is actually a good thing, because say this week we had recorded a day earlier, so yesterday, guys, and say hypothetically the 87s had lost again, I don't know if Anthony would have joined the podcast.
No, he's a good sport. He as we always say, he's right down the middle. He doesn't give too much allegiance.
I'm not that much of a homer, guys.
Exactly.
Saturday night was tough, though, Anthony. Saturday night was tough.
Yeah, at both levels. Yeah, Philadelphia Hockey Club, they did a great job on the power play. What was that, 3 power play goals to climb back into the game? And then they got the go-ahead goal late. So PHC definitely starting on the right foot. And then Adirondack. Have to give a lot of credit to the Junior Thunder, too, because they lost a lot of players, including Blanchard, who's on the 87's EHL team. No Jack Murkowski. No Jack Randall, because he was an age out. But here they are putting up over 5 goals a game. And in that second win they had, or the first win they had, the second of those 3 games, they were down 4-0 on the 87s, and they scored 6 unanswered goals. Mm-hmm. So I think Adirondack, just like last year, they're going to be a high-octane offensive team, and they're just going to run up the score on everyone. So watch out, because they are back.
Yeah, it seems like Cole Davidson's steering the ship, 8 points in 3 games. That's not too bad. 11 different guys with players already. And they went. It looks like Coach Murkowski went a little younger this year too, guys. He's got Kyle Laboutelier, as we try to figure out pronunciations. Laboutier,
or at least that's how Brennan Dowd pronounces it. The play-by-play for the Adirondack Junior Thunder. Also, shout out to Rob Lapolis. He's broadcast some of the Binghamton Devils games in the AHL. He's working for Adirondack, and he was doing the public address for 2 of those games.
Awesome. He's an 07, Kyler is. So they got some 07s, 05s, 04s. And then, as every year happens in junior hockey, boys, we have to update. Age outs are now 03s. Last year, 02s.
Yes.
Keep track
of 07, though, Jeff, makes you and I, in particular, maybe not Anthony as much, feel old.
Yeah, that's when I graduated high school. So,
but let's start there, because obviously that was a 3-game series for Adirondack hosting the 87s. And Anthony, I saw you tweet at Brendan Dowd something about like a broadcaster jinx or something.
Yeah, so the one bright spot for the 87s, I mean, they did win the first game. In all 3 games, Ivan Cooligan scored multiple goals. I think they gave him a 3rd goal in the second game, which I thought was Aiden Georgiano. So I thought it was just 6. But yeah, either way, he was great.
A lot of goals.
And in that third game, he was kept off the score sheet for most of the game. So as he's talking, Brennan Dowd, the Adirondack play-by-play, is talking about Cooligan, how he was kept off the score sheet. 10 seconds later, Cooligan scores. And then Brennan tried to explain that jinx, not even a minute later, where he said, yeah, I said he didn't score, and then he scored, and literally just as he was saying that, he scored again.
Yeah, that was a quick little span. That was goal number 6 at 1846, goal number 7 at 1909. So yeah, that's a nice quick.
Fellas, we have a superpower as play-by-play announcers. We have the power of jinxing. It is real.
23 seconds.
I'm convinced it is real, especially because of Brennan. But no, I can't wait to call a P game at home because Cooligan looked like the best player for most of those 3 games. He was all over the place. He's fast, he's shifty, and that those goals he had in that second game, he has a heck of a shot.
Adirondack went. They had 30 wins last year, 6 regulation losses, and 6 overtime / shootout losses. So off to a good start. 28 wins away from matching last year. I know it's too early to talk about that, right? But off to a good start at the top of the New England division, where we'll stick with that division and go to Vermont, who split their opening weekend with the Bridgewater Bandits. Again, welcome back to the league officially. And then lost at home on Tuesday against the Railers. The Wolves dropped their opener against the Express. And then this one's interesting. This is a trend that I think we're going to talk about a little bit in the EHL as well. It's not consistent for every team that was in Providence, EHL and EHLP combined. But the Avalanche EHLP team was in Providence last year, and they're winless to start this year.
Uh-oh.
So we know there's turnover. We know there's turnover of rosters, but
yeah,
I mean, early on, you can't hit the panic button yet, obviously, right?
Absolutely not. I mean, we talked about it ad nauseum last year. What if you hit the panic button with the Boston Junior Rangers in week 1? Pretty sure at the end of the season they were still sticking around and hoisted some hardware in the EHL. Yeah, they did. So yeah, it's way too early. We still, like we said, we still have teams that haven't even played games yet. So yeah, I mean, obviously you want to get off to a good start, and no matter what level you're at, EHL or EHL Premier, but yeah, in the early rumblings, it's kind of reminiscent of spring training for baseball and preseason ish that first week or so. Once we get into the showcase, I feel like that's when teams really start to kind of find their ground. Then you're after the Worcester showcase, most teams will have played 5-6 games or so. So yeah, I'd say that's the time that even then, I mean, that's a little too early. What do you think, Ant?
I think adding to that point, Jeff, you could argue that the EHLP teams probably have more of an adjustment because EHL teams, you're probably more likely to have returners and you're more likely to have guys coming from the EHLP up to the EHL. Right. At least with the programs that have teams in both the EHLP and the EHL.
Yep.
I've seen it too with the 87s where if you're coming from the P to the EHL, at least you're aware of the systems, how the coaches want you to play. And that's an easy adjustment. For the P, you're normally grabbing guys from different leagues. And for many of them, it's their first time playing junior hockey where they have that oh snap moment. Like, this is junior hockey. I really need to adjust how I play.
That's
also,
a good point.
Another point to bring up, the Valley Junior Warriors, if I'm not mistaken, their EHLP team was pretty good last season.
Oh, yeah.
So losing 8-3 to the Valley Junior Warriors, probably not the most shocking thing because, again, Warriors P team, has done pretty well recently. So got to give credit to Valley Junior Warriors for starting their season on the right foot with the big win. And but yeah, no, it's way too early to start worrying about a team like the Avalanche.
I guess what they're probably looking at the most would be the 15 goals against those so far. Yeah, they can live with the fact that the losses are against the Warriors, who you mentioned, Anthony, had a solid year this past year, and the Railers, who nearly won the championship this past year, right? but probably the 15 goals against is what's got Josh Borden and Chris Sorella thinking a little bit, what can we do to adjust at the EHLP level? But to continue with that trend that I mentioned, we talked about the 87s already, defending champs. They do have a win so far, but also 2 losses. But what stands out even more in that division, Anthony, New Jersey Renegades right out in front, a perfect 2-0 start. Is this a new year in the Mid-Atlantic Division, or is it, again, now too early to start to get to those assumptions?
Well, let's see. The Renegades beat the Union Junior Thunder 6-2, and then they went on to beat the Philadelphia Little Flyers 4-1. So, yeah, the Renegades are off to a good start. But I think, as you and Jeff said, I think it'll be interesting to see how they will do in the showcase.
Yes, that's for sure.
Because I know the Philadelphia Little Flyers don't have the deepest bench right now, at least for the EHLP.
No, not at the moment. But it's building with a number of teams, I guess I could say, are building as well. There's probably 10 roster additions in the past 24 hours. So if you haven't found the transactions tab on our website yet,
one of my favorites.
Yeah, Jeff, you
still
love
updating.
that one, right?
It's great.
It shows all of the recent ads at both levels. There's one for each division. So I would keep an eye on that if I was a fan at home as well. And then shifting down to the Boston division, this is where the trend kind of breaks a little bit, because the Railers, who, as we mentioned, were in the Frozen Finals last year, were in double overtime of the championship game. They're off to a perfect 2-0 start. I'll make you feel better, Jeff. I don't know how to exactly pronounce this. Nolan Tomczyk?
Tomczyk, I think
Tomczyk?
so.
There you go. So I'm sure
That was my
Jake and
guess.
Trevor are listening and are going to tell me that I'm completely wrong. But in 2 games, he's got 5 goals, including a game winner. That's a good start.
Yeah.
So
Jake's already sounding it out at home. No, Neil. No, Zaddy. It's not that. An inside nickname for those of you that don't know.
Yes. Anthony mentioned the Warriors won their first game 8-3 over the Avs. The Express won their first game 8-0 over the Wolves. Remember, the Express were the team that nearly pulled what could have gone down as one of the biggest upsets in EHLP history against the Rangers this past season. So
our man Tyler Rago said that things look a little different with
Nick Piazza.
Kyle Robertson.
Yes.
Express P. He said expect a different team this year already. So he's already liking what he's seeing better.
Yeah, they came out flying in that first game. And then we mentioned the Bandits earlier, with a split in their opening weekend series against Vermont. And then Jeff called this out. 2 teams still left to play their first game in the EHLP. Both come from the Boston division, the Seahawks and the Rangers. And we know the history that the Rangers have built at the EHLP level. But shifting over to the EHL and going back to the trend that I was mentioning of Frozen Finals teams that are not off to Frozen Finals starts. Panic button time for the Railers at the EHL level, guys? Or no, again, way too early for that. I mean, they haven't won yet this season, and they're facing another team that hasn't won yet this season, and the Rangers tomorrow. Last year's semifinal matchup puts the winless Railers versus the winless Rangers up against each other.
So what's going on winless? No, but I mean, that's another team that you got to trust the system. Sean Bertoni, the Odessa family, they have a system in place there over in Worcester. I mean, they lost a lot with goaltending with losing Kulhanek and LaPierre, so I think they're still trying to figure that out. But they have a lot of veteran leadership, guys like Tristan Boyer, Connor McAleer, Corbin Mealy, Miles Kidd moves up from the EHLP. So there's a lot of familiar names there, and I know that that's a team that's definitely going to figure it out once they can kind of get their goaltending going. Which I'm blanking. I know one of them is a Russian name, Maxim Zinchenko. Oh, and Adam Casper. That's right, the old protecting your Ducks goalie. So between those two, I'm sure they'll start to figure things out, working more in practice, and just get your legs in. You just got to see more pucks, get some more games too.
I think this is one thing that we have to bring up is that we're still trying to get used to all the new players that are coming into the league.
Yeah.
So good on you, Jeff. Trying to get that goalie's name right. But
the tough part
is Zinchenko.
whenever you've watch the Railers game in the past 3 years, the odds that you look to your left or right, whatever net they're covering, and Stefan Kulhanik's net was pretty high. I mean, they really, yes, they had LaPierre this past year as well, and he was as perfect a 1B as I think you could have in the league, but they lost both in the same year. You almost wonder if if you're the Railers, do you almost wish that they both weren't O2s and maybe one was like 1 year behind so that you could have at least had one stay back for one more year? Because you lose both, and now like it's all brand new goaltenders in Worcester.
Right.
They don't have a single returning goaltender for either team.
Yeah, Wallace left too, I know.
And Healy's not there.
He's
No
gone.
Kulhanek.
Cam Wickens in Vermont. I know we're going to get to that too. How about that
So
was a nice little revenge game for Cammy, huh? The man
Yeah.
from Revere. Loves his town of Revere.
I can hear the accent now.
Revere.
But you look at that division, and remember last year, of course, the Railers got off to a slow start last year as well. And it was the Chiefs that won, I want to say 7 of their first 9 or 7 of their first 10 games last year, and jumped all the way out in front. As Jeff is palming his cat right now. Do you see this, Anthony?
Yeah.
Jeff, we were just commenting how you were palming your cat there. Like a football. You're still muted.
Gotta hold him by the scruff of his neck.
Sorry, boys. My boy Waylon's a little bit of a he's a dog. He's not even a cat. He's 12 and a half pounds. He wrestles. We play fetch. He was just being an a-hole and getting into stuff in the office that he shouldn't have been getting into. So
I have multiple friends who say that
family.
either their dog is really a cat or their cat is really a dog. I
No,
have a
he
lot of
100%.
friends. Yeah, I have a lot of friends that feel that way about their pets, but
He talks like Nash. He's like, like yeah, he was meant to be a dog. Love him, but pain in my ass sometimes.
But my two next door neighbors have pets. The one on the right of me has a golden retriever, just awesome dog. And then
the best.
my other neighbors on the left of me have a cat that they normally have outside, and now I'll be walking up to my door, and this cat will just come running up to me. Just the most sociable cat ever. So that is the E-Show pet section of the podcast.
Everybody loves pets. Where is Nasher? He's not with us today. He usually sits in that chair behind Dad. But
it was pretty funny the other day, Jeff. We had a coach's call on Monday, and it was just downpouring. I'm not sure about you guys on Monday. When it rains, Nash just becomes like emotionally just depressed. So he was just laying like passed out on the couch. And it's like I can't like block him with my hand like this. Like he was just like dead asleep, and all the coaches were like beside themselves laughing. But
like, Nash, are we boring you? It's like, don't worry, buddy. It happens.
Clearly we were. But back to the Central, you got 4 of the 6 teams already with a win so far this season. Rough Riders have 2 victories that came in back-to-back 1-goal games against the Chiefs. Looks like the Chiefs are going to really enjoy 1-goal games this year, guys. 3 in a row so far to start the season.
They did a lot of that last year, too. They were another team that had a lot of 1-goal losses, a lot of tough overtime, grinded-out type games.
Then you got Perry Goudreau from HC Rhode Island, a name that we didn't know before the season started. Leading the league in scoring.
I mentioned to you guys last year, it was Ollie King that had, I think, 7 points going into the showcase from HC Rhode Island. So we're getting some symmetry here, Commissioner, from last year.
The new white jerseys look pretty clean, too. I'm not sure if you guys saw them on the Instagram story yesterday.
I did see that. I like the gloves, too. Let me see those
gloves,
again.
I haven't. Maybe I'm just too high on the Junior Terriers gloves, and nothing else can compare at this point. But they look kind of like Minnesota North Stars.
Yes, that's what I thought.
If you will.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like the whites, which for those fans that have tuned in at home so far this year, they've probably noticed that we're copying what the NHL does now, and we're wearing darks at home and light jerseys on the road. So the big reason being, more and more of our teams are getting alternate sets, and you don't ever really make a white alternate set. You usually use multiple colors. But I will say this, Anthony, that tan that the 87s marched out on their opening day, it's a cool jersey, but it's not very dark. I may have to address that, but
Yeah, it was
Uh-oh.
interesting too because the Pennsylvania Huntsmen, I think, had their gray jersey, so it was
Wait,
golden gray.
yeah, so we define home as dark and road as light. So the Huntsmen have light grays, the Spartans have light grays, the Little Flyers have that light gray jersey that's constitutes, I guess you could say, as a road jersey in our league. But then, like, keep in mind, like, the Wizards have yellow, right? So that's why we don't
Right.
go as like clear as white and black. We go dark and light, but it'll be interesting to see, how these teams go through it. I mean, we'll get to Maryland. They have 4 sets of jerseys this year:
Oh, some of the sharpest jerseys in the league.
white, yellow, red, and black. Right.
Mhm.
So, but to finish off the Central Division, as I mentioned, 4 of the 6 teams with a win so far. Rhode Island probably a little bit frustrated that they're 1-1. Could have won that game against the Wizards in their opener. They went to a shootout, beat the Lumberjacks the next day. That's probably my first team I'm going to say who is, I guess you could say.
Yes, it's back.
It's the Lumberjacks, but Central Division going to be interesting to watch heading into the showcase. That takes us to the North Division with the Lumberjacks, who fell behind, felt like almost immediately 2-0 against Providence, just to come all the way back to win their season opener this past Friday with 20 seconds left. I want to say Brendan Manning
That's
scored
correct.
the game winner.
I was called you Coach.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Hey, Coach Raven.
I don't get coached a lot, Jeff.
I'm warming up for the showcase. Hey, Coach.
Yeah.
How are you, Coach? Coach, good to see you. How was the offseason, Coach? Coach. My.
And then they dropped the next day a 6-2 contest to HCRI, and then come back 2 days ago on Tuesday, and it's like the Vermont Lumber Railers show, because Matt Pacheco scores the opening goal of the game, and then Cam Wickens is in net as they knock off Vermont 3-2. Who are the Lumberjacks? Like 3 totally different games to start the season.
Yeah, and a team that usually has a lot of retention. I feel like they have a high retention rate.
Yep.
So you notice guys like you just mentioned, Brendan Manning. We remember him from last year. Trent King, a fan favorite. He's back. But as we always say, right, guys, the DHL does the best job of keeping players within the league. It might not work in one system, but it can work in another. And I guess Cam Wickens is showing that. I mean, Cam, unfortunately, I know Coach Bertoni and the Railers liked him a lot last year. It was more what we already talked about. Stefan Kalanick, one of the best goalies in the EHL of all time, and Xavier Lapierre. It was just, you can only have one goalie and one net per game. So he didn't really get enough time to get into the net. I think it was 3 EHL games he played, 8 EHLP. So, I mean, he's taken his starting job with Vermont seriously, and he's got 2 victories already, and we'll see if he can run away with that job.
And before I get to Seacoast, I'm going to get back to them in a second. We have 3 teams in that division that still haven't played yet. Wolves, who kick off against Seacoast tomorrow. Avalanche, who kick off against the Wizards today. And then Warriors, who also kick off against the Wizards tomorrow, right? But then shifting over to Seacoast, I'm going to share my screen for a second, guys, because they win the opener 3-1 over the Rangers, and Ben Skelton was terrific.
And who is this you just pulled up?
To the point where he was named the star of the week for the North Division this past week. Yeah. And then Trotter goes, I got a great duo piece I'm adding to Skelton. He's from Russia. And I'm like, what?
Moskva.
So
Moskva.
His first name is like Arthur, I think Artur, right?
Or Artur usually, yeah, like Artur Zerbe from the Hurricanes Whalers days.
All right, Jeff, give the last name a shot.
Jalavian.
That's probably pretty close, I would think, right?
La. Anthony, your turn.
Oh, sorry.
Artur Gialavian.
Okay,
that sounds good too. All right.
You know what? I don't call games anymore, so I'll leave it up to you guys.
He has retired from the booth.
But I mean, Skelton had 48 saves in that opening game victory against the defending champion Rangers. So
one of the few returning EHL goalies, Neil and Anthony, I think I could find.
We don't have
Besides
many
Kyle Span,
returning EHL
87.
goalies. That's for
No.
sure.
Kind of exciting.
Yeah,
maybe offense goes up a bit this year. I don't know.
It definitely could.
I mean, Rhode Island 11 goals in 3 games. That's almost 4 goals.
Oh, we've already seen some high scoring games in this first week. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It was all OT on day 1, and then we've gotten away from overtime. But
it was a very unique opening day with all the overtime games. Right. But as I mentioned, 3 teams in the North that still haven't played a game yet, but are playing either today or tomorrow, which kicks us over to the East Division. And I mentioned the Rangers already, keeping with that trend, guys, of some Frozen Finals teams that haven't won a game yet this year. It's weird. It's not all Frozen Finals teams, as I mentioned, but it's like half of the teams that were there, and the Rangers dropped their opener. Wizards, we mentioned, won their opener in a shootout against HCRI, and then what a way for the Junior Terriers to enter the EHL. A 6-5 come from behind victory against the Railers in Worcester.
Yeah, that has to feel nice.
That has to feel like a immediate, like, monkey off the back, like what a relief for that team, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, for Cody, we talked about him as a new head coach. And how do we say Cody's last name again? So I don't get that one wrong. Gagnon?
You know what? Hold on. I have to make sure I get it right too, because
can we name this episode just pronunciation?
He made me nervous the other day when he texted me specifically how to pronounce it.
I know it's Gonyeau.
Well, and I want to make sure that I'm doing it right too, because I always thought I was doing it right.
Last episode, he's like, No,
it is Gone-you.
Gone-you.
Yes, he typed it out as Gone you to me. So
thanks, Code. Yeah. Appreciate it. I mean, he hasn't been there to play. What I was gonna say, we love Neil Mulcahy. We've talked about Neil a lot. He had been at the WIC quite a bit as a scout for when he was coaching the Southern New Hampshire University Penmen with Walshy, another one of our fan favorites. So Neil had been in that building before. I'm not sure if Cody had been, but it's a beautiful building to play in. And yeah, the Terriers. I'm a Husky fan, as I always like to tell people. Everyone knows. Allegiance to the Huskies, but the Terriers, they have fresh jerseys. All right, they're fresh looking. All right.
So Jeff, what you're saying is, if we have the Northeastern Junior Huskies coming into the EHL, you're going to be the GM.
Jeff's going to buy the team. Jeff's going to buy the team.
It's going to be the owner. Hey,
I'll talk to Jim Madigan, Jared Kiefel. We'll figure something out. Yep.
How about Jake Hugeson in net for the Boston Junior Terriers?
Yep.
Played for the 87s last season. Great kid. And I believe he's
35
he's
saves,
an 03 or 04, so he came in pretty young last season for the 87s, and he was a part of that tandem, and they were really good together, he and Kyle Span. So good to see him with the Junior Terriers and picking up winning his first start with this new team. So I think the Junior Terriers are going to be pretty strong in net this season.
He's an 03, yeah.
Okay.
He had 20. Here's your quick math. He had 24 saves in the second, third, and overtime periods after they fell behind 3-0 in that game, right? So they were down 3-0 going into the intermission. So in your first game in the EHL, that's probably like, I used the phrase panic button earlier, probably like, oh man, what do we get ourselves into at first? But what a resilient bunch to come back the way that they did in their opener to win. And then I guess it falls right into the question I just asked. Who are the Lumberjacks? We'll find out more and more this weekend as they host the Terriers.
They are Seth Gustin. They are Maurice Rosales. That's what they are.
Yes, they host the Terriers this weekend, Saturday night and Sunday afternoon, which I think is a great thing. I know we're going back to the P for a second here, Anthony, but in speaking with Connell, he loved the fact that he played 3 games up at Adirondack this weekend. I'm sure the same way Cody loves the fact he's got 2 games in Vermont this weekend. It's a great early season trip a chance to be away from. I know it's not home where these teams are living, but it's still your primary bed, right? On the road, on the bus,
In the
about the
hotels.
Seahawks, like taking their phones away. This is a great chance to get to know the guys. And I think Cody probably did it because he'll now have 3 games played and 1 long road trip heading into the showcase. So a good way for the Terriers.
Well, when you say taking their phones, they're not going through the pictures, are they?
Oh, geez.
Oh, Babcock, see ya, buddy. Oh man,
You
what a
know,
fossil.
I actually have his autograph, Anthony.
Babcock's?
Yes,
Or
I do.
Really?
So,
He's a fossil, dude. He's lost his touch.
We're
I
186
don't know.
episodes into this podcast, and I think at some point I've probably mentioned how I grew up a fan of both the Bruins and the Red Wings.
Yep.
My father is from a town called Birmingham, Michigan, which actually is where Jack Wyman's
Yes.
from. Yes.
Yes.
So
Love that.
it's pretty funny how that works out, right?
DMD Rabin, Jack
yeah,
Wyman.
so
Two handsome men.
he grew up a Red Wings fan because of that, but his family spent summers on the Cape, so he was kind of a Bruins fan too. So I just inherited the same thing, right? So I have a Pavel Datsyuk jersey. He's really probably my favorite player of all time, which is like an easy thing to say because he was just like so gifted. But I went to.
He's still playing in Europe too, Neil.
Probably,
watch
right?
Him and Yager. Yager's
Yager. Yeah, right.
51 years old, playing his 30-something year in professional hockey.
So I have my Datsyuk shirt on. We went to this Bruins game. One of my dad's patients was like Tim Thomas's roommate at UVM. Isn't that what he went? Yeah, right.
Yep.
So he gets us these like he gets us this like player and family like meet and greet pass. And I'm like, we probably like shouldn't be here. Like, we don't really know these people that well, but whatever. So like I was standing facing a certain way and I felt a hand on my shoulder. And I can't do a Russian accent, Anthony. I could probably ask any of the 87s how to do one, but like, do you want my autograph on your jersey? And Datsyuk comes up with this. His head is huge. I didn't realize like how big his head was. Right? Like, I don't know how you get a helmet around that thing, but I was like, okay, whatever. Get his autograph like, on the number, right? And I was like, well, if I have it on the number, if I get any more, I wanted to go above the shoulder, like the line that goes across the top of the number. So I have like 6 or 7 across the top. Nick Lidstrom came up, Chris Draper, a number of guys. And then this deep voice was, how about one more? And I was like, what? And it's Mike Babcock. And I was like, sure, coach. Like, sounds good. And then all this stuff happens, Anthony. And I'm like, that jersey isn't worth a lot anymore.
Yeah. You know what's crazy too? They said that the GM of the Blue Jackets, Jarmo Kekalainen, he asked him for his phone too.
Okay. Wow.
And he was like, oh, okay. He like gave it to him. Was like, all right, this is interesting. So,
but
yes, Spitting Chicklets breaking that up. Biz and Wit.
Bizarre.
This was freaking out.
We are a players podcast. That includes the E show.
And hey,
don't suggest any of our EHL coaches doing that. Let's not get into meetings with Joe O'Neill in the beginning of the season.
Hey, that wraps up the East Division, though. We'll go to the South now.
Hey.
And almost keeping with the trend that I mentioned of Frozen Finals teams or past Frozen Finals teams that got off to interesting starts. The 87s have had a few Frozen Finals appearances, but they got their first win yesterday against the Little Flyers, who, after a 1-1 start, they only had 3 lines in their opener. I know they have a bunch of guys coming in now, but the 3 lines were great because they won 5-0 against Philly Hockey Club. Who is Philly Hockey Club? Because then they have that comeback against the 87s. What a start to the year for the Huntsmen at the EHL level. I think they probably have to look at that as like, you couldn't have dreamt it up any better than being 2-0 with wins over Philly and the 87s. The New Jersey Bears off to a 3-1 start. This is not a shot, the Bears. I hope they don't take it that way.
Here he comes.
Do you see the jerseys? The white, I don't mind the white, right? But they wore the black yesterday, and I understand that they were the Ducks that became the Bears, but the orange is just killing me in the blacks. It's killing me in the blacks.
You know what I was gonna ask you too is that like their New Jersey Bears crest. Remember that alternate jersey the Bruins had a few years
It's
ago?
exactly what
it.
It's exactly what it is. So
Because I look at it, I'm like, that looks exactly like the Bruins black with the gold. The crest is like
the
identical.
white jerseys, it's white. They have orange and yellow. They look like they're PSENG, the power company of New Jersey. I mean, yeah, if you want to look it up or anybody, you just look up the PSENG.
I'm showing Jeff the town that they're in
exactly
New
the same.
Jersey is
Hunterdon,
called
right?
Hunterdon.
Yeah.
And their youth program are their Hunterdon Bears, right? So
and they wanted to keep that, which is cool. They want to keep with the town.
And the owner grew up a Bruins fan, and it kind of makes sense why the color scheme is the way that it is. I'm sorry, the orange in the black jerseys is killing me a little bit. But maybe if I see it in person next week, it'll be differently. Clearly, it doesn't matter for the results because they're off to a 3-1 start. Again, though,
the rookie head coach Jason Kilcoyne.
Yes, and that was an excellent series with Team Maryland down in Maryland. I know they weren't all 1-goal games, but the one game that Maryland won, I believe they won in the final minute as well. So early on, Anthony, the South looks deep.
We are the South.
I mean,
once again,
everyone has a win in the South already, and it's September 21st. Let's just say that. Everyone has a win already. Like that shows you that is the perfect example, I should say, of parity in a nutshell right there.
Also, I feel like I'm always being like right in the middle of the Pennsylvania Huntsman history here, where I got to call their first win in the EHLP last season, shootout winner, and then I got to call their first EHL win in overtime. John Manzi with the game-winning goal.
Well,
you'll protect Duck.
We just know that the rivalry between you and Joe Sindoni is just alive, right? So
it's electric.
The broadcaster.
This is to Joe. I'm all over the Pennsylvania Huntsman Instagram. Anytime there's a highlight, I feel like it's always my voice.
Well, there was it the playoff hype video? They used a line that Anthony used from the podcast. That's the thing. This is tough for us guys. Like,
and then with Max Finkelday when he committed.
Yes.
And I think it was from the podcast when I was here on the E Show and I was giving the story about him coming from Africa.
Yeah. So I think it's funny
bulletin board material.
Growing up, the lesson, I guess you could say, that my parents' family tried to instill within me was never put something in writing that you'd want to appear on the front page of the Boston Globe. That was like the go-to line they would always say, right? So now we've learned, Anthony, never record something on the podcast that a team is going to use in their hype video for the playoffs to start that postseason, right?
Well, it wasn't like I said anything negative about them.
No.
From what I remember.
If anything, we provided motivation, right? But funny that for the Huntsmen's first win in the EHL, it's an overtime victory against the 87s, scored by a former Protect Junior Duck. So it's just the South is the South, and they're gonna probably show up at the showcase next week and be like, "Remember that episode when you said that the North was probably the best last year? We were the best. We were the best the year before. We're the best now. We're always gonna be the best." Is what they're all going to probably
for the
say.
North. You
yes.
got that.
So, like I said, it's the only division that every team has a win.
Also,
that's what I'm going to say too. We go out and play in the beginning of the season. I don't know what these other teams do about sitting around and waiting around, but
think there's a shout out that deserves to go to Matt Reed. He was a longtime assistant for Josh Fusco over at Team Maryland. Now he's the head coach for the Huntsman's EHL team. I guess Blaise Kilroy will stay with the EHLP team. So good for Matt Reed, off to a 2-0 start in the EHL.
A fantastic start, that is for sure. We kind of talked about this a little bit this past week. We don't have fantasy yet, but let's jump to folks. The E-Show Fantasy Challenge now as we continue to set the table for it to start in the beginning of October.
Now it's time for the E-Show Fantasy Challenge. Follow along on the EHL app, available now for free on both Apple iOS and Android.
Yeah, no fantasy yet, Jeff, but there is still fantasy football going on right now. I didn't know, I may not have told you this. I don't actually have a fantasy football team or a league this year.
What?
Yeah, my league disbanded. It was kind of It was kind of a
but
tough day, to be totally honest. Nobody wanted to keep it going, and I just said in a group text, who's in, who's out, and everyone said they were out. I was like, all right, so you know what? I'm doing daily fantasy. I've been
That's a
doing the
better-
daily fantasy on DraftKings for weeks 1 and week 2. A very interesting first two opening weeks. What do you think?
Yeah, it has been an interesting couple of weeks, and it's funny because I'm actually in the most leagues I've been in years now. I got roped into a couple extra leagues, so now I'm in 3. I wish I knew. I would have got you in we
Maybe-
had some openings. Would've
Maybe
got
I'll
you in.
co-manage one with you, but it's
Right.
DraftKings. I'm doing the daily fantasy, but they also have the sportsbook too, Jeff, and they have a great deal right now for new customers.
They do deal. So new customers can bet $5 and they get $200. So that's bet 5. You get $200 instantly in bonus bets. So throw 5 down on any of this week's epic matchups to walk away with an instant winner. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. So that should include Thursday night football, Sunday night football. Later in the season, you'll get Saturdays, Monday night football, but football's more fun when you're in on the action. So download the app now and sign up with the code THPN. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, you can call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. Licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility. Terms and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.
You're getting pretty good at that, Jeff.
I
And
love it.
we now have the official name of what our fantasy will be called this year, guys. If I can move this Zoom control out of the way,
Enter the drum roll.
it's going to be called the eShow Fan to See Challenge. Get it?
Ooh,
Because
fan
it's
in all
for the
capital letters
fans,
for those
too.
that can't see at home.
Yes, it's for the fans.
Love it.
Again, we're not starting this until right after the showcase, right? But for those that are going to want to join in on myself, Anthony, Jeff, I'm sure Jake, Trevor, Tyler, Haley, Jamie, Justin, everyone's going to be submitting lineups. You're going to pick 1 forward, 1 defenseman, and 1 goalie for the month of October, which games in October go from the 4th to the 31st. We're not going to count the games on the 1st because that's still part of the showcase, right? So you have until the 3rd to submit your picks. We're going to have a Google form, if you will, that you can fill out, click, or type in the guy's name, check off their team, do the same for the defenseman, do the same for the goalie. You obviously get points for goals, points for assists, points for game winners. We're not doing the bonus points like we used to do amongst the 3 of us. Be a little bit too hard to track. I really don't know how many people we're going to get to sign up. The hope is that a bunch of people do. And again, it's not daily fantasy in the sense of you have a new lineup every day, but it's monthly fantasy and that you have a new lineup every month. That way we'll probably, hopefully, have more people sign up as the months progress. And if you sign up later in the year, you don't feel like you have to play catch up because you're 2 months behind. Each month is its own brand new month. So starting in October, from the 4th through the 31st, we'll have 1 winner who will win a grab bag box full of EHL swag from my basement.
Love it.
So
I kind of like that. So it's like a bunch of different, instead of doing like season long, we're doing like daily. We're doing daily fantasy thanks to DraftKings.
yeah.
Kinda.
So like
Daily,
early on,
monthly.
early on, you could imagine that Perry Goudreau would be a popular forward pick for the
Probably.
fans at home. Cole Douglas, a defenseman, had a big game against the Little Flyers yesterday. I want to say 2 or 3 points in that one. Goalies early on, again, Jeff, you kind of covered this. It's tough to know who.
Cam Wickens.
Cam Wickens with a couple of wins. Carson Fry has 3 wins. This is a joke, again, not a shot, but the New Jersey Bears had a new scorekeeper yesterday. And sometimes the refs who are reffing the game don't know exactly who scored the goal, and they say a number. And when the number is 29, and that's Carson Fry's number, he probably didn't score the goal. But if we were playing fantasy, I'm sure someone would be like, "Oh my god, I got a goalie going there too!" Like this is unreal, right?
I'd be getting a text from Walshy. Jefferson, you get bonus points. Goalie scored.
But I give the scorekeeper credit.
Rodman.
They put in what the ref told them. Goal was scored by 29. Well, it probably wasn't scored by 29 because that's the goalie. But it's fine. They were just doing what they were said. They were told, right? But again, we're calling this the E-Show Fan to See Challenge.
Our refs are still in spring training mode too. By everyone's being in the box for hundreds and hundreds of hockey games. Very blessed to have said that. Yeah, I want to know what the percentage is of how many times I get the right versus the wrong.
It's hard though. Like
I'm the one up to it. They go over and go, I have no idea, Jeff. Your guess is as good as mine. I'm like, all right, let's roll back the replay.
And in fairness to them, whether I'm broadcasting or watching games on Flow Hockey, where I'll see a play and I'll have to go back once or twice and see it again to see, what happened or who scored the goal, who set up the play.
Right.
And
hockey is not a slow sport.
The officials do not have that luxury.
Nope.
So
and we don't have the luxury replay unless you bring your computer that you can rewind on Flow Hockey or your phone or wherever.
But speaking of that luxury, so when I worked 2 seasons for the Portland Pirates on their off-ice officials crew, there were, I want to say, 9 of us. There were 2 goal judges, 2 penalty box attendants, a scorekeeper, so that's 5. We're keeping the math going here.
There you go.
And then there were 4 of us up top. I typically was up top. That was where someone put the live scoring into the system, which is actually league stat, what the EHL uses now. Crazy how things change. The other 3 were responsible for plus minus, trying to track assists and trying to track the goals, right? So typically the head of the on-ice officials was responsible for the goal, right? So when I got to be the head for a few nights, it was really interesting the way I was taught, as I was given this like notepad of paper. And while watching the game up in front of me, the guy taught me, his name was Jim Andershat, you try and like write the numbers down while not looking at the page. So I'm literally sitting up top with the paper like this, and I'm writing out as the puck moves. So like this is I've never seen anything like this until I actually did it, but it actually works. So like I'm saying to myself out loud, 15-5, 5-22, 22, and I'm writing it, and then I'm looking down and I'm like, wow, I can't read what I'm writing, but I know what I can kind of understand what I'm writing. It's just like kind of scribbled, but it worked. Like it was actually a way for us to go back, and I said, well, it looks like my last 3 numbers were 23 from 5 and 10. And then you pull the replay up and it was 23 from 5 and 10. So that's how
I take a pen.
I don't think everyone does it that way, right? But compared to now, us, the EHL, who there's one person in the scorer's box that's running the clock and doing the live scoring, maybe 2 people. I can't blame the refs for trying to call penalties as well, that they don't know outside of who scored the goal typically, who has the assist and whatnot. That's why you often see the players communicating that to them. Sometimes probably trying to get a little ghost assist from themselves, right? But we will not call that out in the podcast.
You know what? I think Chris Russo know that all too well, being down ringside, where the players will sometimes take that initiative and go talk to him, sometimes for maybe nefarious reasons.
Yes. Perfect word for it. Are you
And
testing it
luckily
out? Are you testing it out right now, Jeff?
I just grabbed a pen and did it, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It takes some practice, right? I mean, that's probably not the way that everyone does it. That's just the way that crew did it.
Right.
And once I actually did it a few times, I was like, wow, it kind of makes sense. This is how you track where the puck went. The game is so fast that you're gonna miss it at the same time too.
Thank you, Portland Pirates. So learned a new thing today.
But there's also, tips in front, this and that. I bet you if we asked Cole Mitchell from the Junior Terriers, did you actually score that game winner in overtime, or did somebody in front tip it? Who knows, right? Who knows?
Usually the boys are pretty honest, and luckily we have a lot of coaches too that are always checking, looking.
Yes.
So
one thing I've learned too, up in the play-by-play booth, you just trust your gut instinct, because I'll hear a different name and I'll be like, wait, no, I thought it was this guy who set up the goal. And I'll look back on the replay on Flow Hockey and I'll see, oh yeah, no, I was right.
Yep.
But again, no fantasy yet. We'll also have no fantasy again next week, but this is really just all building up. Keep those notes at home, keep that research going at home, because come the end of the showcase, you're going to have a couple days to submit your picks for October, and you only get 3 names, right, for the entire month. So
we'll keep doing like we did this week. We'll just float some more names out there.
Yeah.
We just gave you some now. So hopefully you wrote those down. If not, hit rewind, write them down.
Exactly. So to keep that going, Jeff, we'll give them some games to watch those names in our What to Watch For segment.
And now here's what to watch for in the EHL and the EHLP.
What to Watch For is presented by Flow Hockey, the official streaming platform for your EHL and EHLP action throughout the 2023-2024 season.
Like we said before, everyone that hasn't played yet at least gets their first game under their belt this weekend. So I'm sure we'll have one of those probably here in What to Watch For. But for me, the first thing that grabs my attention, again, I mentioned this earlier for the EHL, it's winless Rangers versus winless Railers. Like, that was a semi-final matchup last year. I know it's so early, and it still could be a semi-final matchup again this year, but those were the 2 of the final 4 teams. And there's only
talk show to do, folks. We have to do it.
And I know I'm getting death eyes from Bertoni and DiCaprio right now, but that grabs my attention. Like, someone's gonna be still winless after that game. Like, it is what it is. Like, that's what gets my attention. And then
head shaking now.
It's fine. In the EHLP, for those that don't remember, last year the Avalanche were actually the 4 seed in the New England division and had to beat the Chiefs first in the play-in game and then swept the Adirondack Junior Thunder. 2 very good games, but knocked off Adirondack in a best of 3 series, 2-0. To then go on to face the Wolves, then go on to the Frozen Finals. So for the Avalanche, they go back to Cool Insuring Arena on Saturday night to face Adirondack at 7. That's my game to watch in the EHLP.
I want to give a little shout out to our boys in the Cape, the Seahawks. Mike Richard just had a birthday. Happy belated birthday, Coach. I think I wished him happy birthday on Facebook or text him, but and Xander, one of our favorites. Seahawks versus HC Rhode Island. And taking a look at the Seahawks roster, do see some returners. I do see that's Bill Collette's nephew, I believe, Mike Collette. Who else do they have? Masichi, he was on the premier team, so he got called up. Kevin Wright is still there. Remember when Kevin Wright was a baby? Now he's an 05. He's actually he's still got 2 years of eligibility.
He's still a baby? Okay.
No, he's getting older now. But how about Seahawks HCRI is a EHL game to watch out for. Also saw, and I'll give you a double special. Junior Terriers go up to Letty Arena. So they get their first taste of one of the tougher buildings to play in the EHL for a weekend series. So that could be another interesting matchup. And then let's see. In the EHLP, I saw Rangers Railers. That's 2 cream of the crop teams that have been around for quite a bit over on Saturday. So let's keep an eye on that. That's over at the BIC. The BIC or the WIC? The Worcester Ice Center or the Breakaway Ice Center? It's at the BIC, so check that one out too.
Anthony, wrap us up.
For the EHL, I'd have to say the Express Hockey Club and the Bridgewater Bandits. For the Bandits, it will be their first game in the EHL. So we'll see how they do there. The EHLP team's already gotten a win, and their return to the P. But Neil, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think the Bandits ever played in the EHL, right? Did they just have a P team?
Technically, yes. It was called the Premier at the time, though.
Yeah.
Remember, the divisions were called Premier and Elite, so they did play in the Premier. Actually, the 2015-16 season, they were one of the better teams at the top level that year. Edwards Trailmarks.
Was that with Trailmarks?
Yeah. So remember that was the Todd Sterling
Todd Sterling was
year
there,
where
right.
they could literally beat everybody except for the Express, and got knocked out by the Express, of course, in the playoffs, right? But they finished in first place in their division actually that season.
And now Todd runs the Express. How funny things change.
But they haven't played a game technically at the top level, Anthony, since it was started to be called just the EHL, right? So
also I'm looking at the roster for the Express Hockey Club, and their defense core is more like, their D core is more like their B core. Everyone just has names that start with the letter B. You got Brody Hernandez, Ben Douglas, Brady Clark, and then Bo Buster Bjorn.
Yes, that's one of Tyler's favorites. I remember
their B line.
The bees, the killer bees.
So we're ramping things up in the EHL and EHLP. For those teams that haven't played a game yet, they have one coming up at some point this weekend, all in anticipation of next week's showcase. I want to say we have a bunch of games this week: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then like 2 more on Tuesday. And
I saw that.
And then nothing Monday, nothing Wednesday, and then it's just like floodgates next Thursday through Sunday, the 28th through the 1st. We have 62 games. So what our teams have before then, though, is a chance to get things as right as they can be before the showcase, because, of course, all eyes will be on them at that showcase. So remember, next week's podcast, we're going to record and post a day early on Wednesday the 27th because of the showcase. So between now and then, if you're not going out to any of the games in person, be sure to enjoy them all on Flow Hockey, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Sounds good. That sounds good. Wow. Speak English. See you, boys.
Thanks for listening to The E Show, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network. Learn more about us at easternhockeyleague.org and follow us on all of your favorite social media platforms. Also, be sure to subscribe and get notified when our next podcast episode is released.